Good evening and welcome. It is Friday, November 18, 2011. This is the Infowars Nightly News. I'm Aaron Dykes. Alex will be back next week. He's out on location covering an important story related to the United Nations takeover of parks and wildlife areas. And we have a large update tonight covering a lot of that material, and we'll cover more in the future as well. But first, let's get into the news. In Europe, all things dealing with the debt crisis are coming undone. Kurt Nemo reports that there are ECB riots beginning in Italy as globalist Super Mario forces austerity. Now, this is an out-and-out Bilderberg and Trilateral member, and he's instituted a new, quote, technocratic government to impose austerity measures. On his first day in office, the bankster Prime Minister of Italy, Mario Monti, told Italians they could expect to be rolled by ECB banksters, European Central Bank. As we noted last week, Mario is a super globalist, a trilateralist, Bilderberger, and former bankster for Intesa Sanpaolo. His job is to bring IMF-style austerity to the people of Italy that Berlusconi cleared the way for. Specifically, this will include new taxes and, quote, incentives for free traders looking to buy up Italy's public infrastructure for pennies on the dollar, the same transfer back to the private sector they always do, not just anyone in the private sector. And so blogger J. Brad Hicks has noted that the Deutsche Bank and German banks loaned huge sums of money to Greece and Italy, knowing for a fact that at least half of the loan money was being stolen by wealthy personal friends and business partners of government officials, not caring, of course, because they knew the European Central Bank would enforce, quote, austerity, demanding that people who didn't benefit from the loans would be the ones to pay it back. And thus, under the reign of Super Mario Monti, the Bilderberg insider, the IMF riot has morphed into the ECB riot, and people were in Turin as well as Milan protesting against rule by bankers and this technocratic government set up by unelected Mario Monti. Certainly, it is rule by bankers. Meanwhile, the debt crisis shows again that Angela Merkel is the boss. And this article from CNBC gets into how, having spent billions of euros they didn't have, governments across Europe are now finding out the hard way that without money they have to accept things they would rather not be doing, namely taking orders from Angela Merkel in Berlin and Mario Draghi in Frankfurt. And it gets into how Ireland's Minister Kenny will have to visit Berlin to get approval of his spending plans for 2012. And it gets into how Italy and Greece are now forcing through austerity measures with the orders from the same entities, and how Cameron in the UK has been told not to allow a referendum vote as they're trying to discourage referendums all across Europe in an attempt to jam through this new bailout vehicle that will take away sovereignty uniformly across Europe, especially from the failed countries, imposing new restrictions and attempting to set up a new political union throughout Europe. Furthermore, the Telegraph gets into Germany's secret plan to derail a British referendum on the EU, going into further detail on the restrictions for David Cameron in the UK. Germany has drawn up secret plans to prevent a British referendum on the overhaul of the European Union amid concerns it could derail the Eurozone rescue package, leaked documents obtained by the Telegraph disclosed. The leaked memo, written by the German Foreign Office, discloses radical plans for an intrusive new European body that will be able to take over the economies of beleaguered Eurozone nations. And it goes on to talk about the riots in Italy and how the 6-page German Foreign Ministry paper sets out plans for the creation of a European monetary fund that will transfer sovereignty from member states. The fund will have the power to take ailing countries into receivership and run their economies. So not only will these ministers tacitly and passively seek approval for their budgets, there will be a direct European Monetary Fund mechanism over them, dictating all kinds of things, including these austerity measures. And they seek the development of a political union throughout the EU. And furthermore, they have outlined ways to limit treaty changes and speed up reforms, i.e. preventing votes amongst the people in these countries, hoping instead to rubber stamp a bailout mechanism they hope will have unlimited money. They called it previously an unlimited monetary bazooka. We'll see what happens there. And indeed. Meanwhile, Russian warships enter Syrian waters to prevent NATO attack. Paul Joseph Watson writes about how Moscow, in an aggressive move to stop another humanitarian intervention, has moved in its warships. Russian warships are due to arrive at Syrian territorial waters, indicating that the move represented a clear message to the West. Moscow would resist any foreign intervention in the country's civil unrest. And obviously things are heating up there. Syria and Iran, among others, on the globalist hit list to take out in the Middle East. They've already dealt with Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and other countries in that Central Asian, Middle Eastern, and Northern African area. And we can just expect tensions to escalate. We hope it will not lead to any kind of World War III scenario, although the interests posed for Russia and China make that increasingly likely. Now, another story we have for you tonight was based on a tip we got on the radio today. Alex and myself heard from a caller talking about an article in Game Informer, the world's #1 video game magazine, and it promised to explore the volatile political climate with a groundbreaking and controversial look at homegrown terror. And it gets into an article about the new Rainbow Six Patriots game, which is one of several games based on the Tom Clancy novels. And this article is called The Enemy Within. It says, you fought Nazi, Russian, North Korean, and Middle Eastern threats. Now in Rainbow Six Patriots, you're asked, can you turn the weapon on your fellow countrymen? Can you turn the weapon on your fellow countrymen? I want to read part of this blurb here because it's very informative. Americans are angry, and why shouldn't they be? Goes through everything dealing with debt, foreclosures, bailouts, the degrading infrastructure, the job market, and a whole lot more. It says, in response to the gradual erosion of our beloved nation, resentful citizens of all kinds and backgrounds are rising up in the form of new political movements like the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street. But unlike the 60s, they have proven largely ineffective at slowing or reversing the downward trajectory, and the media is not helping matters, going on to blame internet and talk radio, among other things. Case in point, okay, it says history proves that if leaders don't move swiftly to address the grievances, the political rage can sometimes find a more violent channel of expression. Case in point, the meteoric rise of militias in the past few years, and who does it quote but the Southern Poverty Law Center and extremely politically biased groups that have long sought to target, quote, white ring groups, as well as patriot and militia groups, including this organization and many other groups from We Are Change on down, all peaceful groups trying to defend this country and uphold the Constitution. It says in 2009, the Southern Poverty Law Center reported a massive resurgence in anti-government paramilitary groups, which jumped from 43 militias in 07 to nearly 300 in 2010. And this was noticed by Homeland Security, NSA, CIA, FBI, and others as a real threat to the stability of the nation. Then it goes on to how America's volatile political climate serves as the jumping-off point for Rainbow Six Patriots, where the tactical shooter series eschews the exhausted Russian, Chinese, and Middle Eastern crises that were so common, now to replace them with the roles of elite tactical units with homegrown terrorists. And the civilians caught in the crossfire, do you have what it takes to pull the trigger on a fellow citizen? And so they've set the scenario for Homeland Security talking points where they're targeting returning veterans, which are mentioned in this lengthy 6-page article, militia groups, radical political groups throughout the country, and more. In the game, they have a scenario where the True Patriots is a combine made up of various militia groups throughout the country, headed by a charismatic figure named Treadway, who hopes to restore civil liberties and the Constitution. And it says he could strike anywhere. He'd like to overthrow the government, but he's really smart, and he knows that a movement today won't conclusively have lasting change tomorrow, thus other types of movements there, which the game gets into. And there's an added bonus. It says in previous games, allowing a civilian to die was game over. That means you lose the game, you have to start over. Now you're not exempt from tough situational decisions. Do you kill one civilian now and potentially spare hundreds of lives, or is the lone human life too critical to lose, even if it means thousands of others may meet untimely death down the road? In Patriots, you make the call whether or not to kill American civilian citizens. And this is just disgusting. It matches perfectly the MIAC report that leaked in 2009. The very similar Homeland Security report, identifying third-party political groups, constitutionalists, and a whole lot more as part of the growing domestic terrorism situation that TSA and the rest of them are supposed to be on the lookout for, thus justifying checkpoints and everything else on the highways, at train stations, bus stations, now in shopping malls. They have people watching at hotels now, they say, and a whole lot more. And this is just disgusting indoctrination. There's a lot of youth who play these games who will later be joining the military and essentially brainwashed through, I think the average video game takes at least 40 hours of playing to complete, so it's a lot more time you spend in these games than with a movie or a TV program, and through the first-person shooter, you're repeating these actions over and over, so you really kind of get indoctrinated with it. Just a dangerous precedent, and you can see where government propaganda is in these big, expensive games, which rake in more money now than a lot of movies and TV programs as well. So an interesting tip we got, and it is certainly true. You can check that out again in Game Informer, and we're going to keep an eye on what possible effect that Rainbow Six Patriots could have. Now, we're going to be back from break in just a minute with exclusive coverage of the United Nations takeover. But first, let's play some video from Rainbow Six Patriots.
Very nice place you've got here. You really did cash in on everyone else getting foreclosed, didn't you? Today, you're going to make up for that. Listen, you hold this down until Times Square, or your family gets a... We're taking fire!
If they kill him, everybody on this bridge is going to be blown sky high. Engage NYPD immediately. Are you ordering friendly fire? No time to radio now. Take the shot. Shoot your wound. They're down. Proxy bombers.
Remote detonator. This is bad. There's more than 100 people still in the kill radius.
We're out of time. I'm sorry. Over here, now! What did you do? What I had to do.
And really, in other ways, this game just goes along with the same indoctrination of series like 24 with Jack Bauer, where it's okay to torture people. You decide if it's worth it to kill civilians to stop a terrorist attack, especially when it's American citizens as part of a homegrown effort. Now, we're going to be back from break in just a minute with exclusive coverage and some of Alex's clips from America Destroyed by Design and other updates on the United Nations takeover of much of our parks and wildlife land and a whole lot more, as well as more news. But I first want to remind you about the Christmas specials. There's a Patriot offer for a $39.95 super discounted 44% off yearly subscription to PrisonPlanet.tv that now includes the nightly news, Alex's daily radio TV show, which is 3 hours long every day, all the special video reports we do, the online books, the other videos we offer, and a whole lot more. You can also get that yearly special with 18 physical copies of Alex's film on DVD for $129.95, an incredible deal. And there's nothing like Christmas time when you're giving gifts during the holiday to have a physical, nicely packaged, plastic wrapped something to give to that friend, family, or loved one to let them know, oh, what is this? What is this you want me to check out? And a lot of times they will, along with the other junk you get around the holiday times. So something to keep in mind. We'll be back in just a moment from break.
If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the Infowars store at Infowars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe Infowars t-shirts. We've got the incredible Pro Pure gravity-fed filters available at Infowars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there, wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at Infowars.com today. The water filters, the canteens, it's all there. Infowars.com.